Good afternoon and congratulations. You've made it, despite all the difficulties and to go through all the security. You are here, you are at the right place. So thank you very much for attending. And good afternoon to the ones who are also attending or listening through online. I'm Philippe Zawati. I'm CEO of Mirova and one of the board members of Mouvement Impact France. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank to being here today at the Residence Palace in Brussels. I am really very happy, very honored to open this event, which officially launches the Business for a Better Tomorrow Coalition. So today is the completion of a long-term project that we have been working on since last year, the many months, with different European colleagues, and most of them are here today in this room. And I believe that we can be collectively very proud of the result and the outcome of these months of work. And that we will all be defending in our respective countries when we go home over the coming weeks and months. With climate change, biodiversity loss, and rising inequalities, business and society as a whole face a crucial dilemma: transform themselves, change their practices, and converge towards the best environmental and social performance, or collapse. That's the dilemma and the choice that we have to make today. Collapse, because there is no business possible on a sick planet. Because there is no business possible in a world where war, injustice, and social inequality reign. The European Union has become aware in recent years of the urgent need to take action and to transform not only the business, but the way the economy works as a whole. As a part of the Green Deal, what we call the Green Deal, numerous initiatives have been taken and launched to require businesses to become more sustainable, to be more innovative and responsible. The European Union has laid the foundations for the transitions to a low-carbon economy that is most respectful of the environment and human rights, and that's obviously a very good news. Unfortunately, it's not as easy. For several months now, we have been hearing cries of alarm coming from the traditional businesses and all the business world, and also from the political sphere and big political decision makers, calling for a pause, for a halt, for a break, whatever the word which is used, in the adoption of new environmental regulations. And even, in certain cases, calling into question entire sections of the Green Deal. We have seen that with natural law and other topics like that. Of course, this is not something we can accept. We don't have time to wait. The Green Deal is obviously a major step forward, but it will not be enough. Now we have to implement it. It's not only a question of directive laws. It's a question of the real world and the real economy. it will not be enough to bring the European economy into line with the major challenges of our time. It will not be enough to change a system with obsolete rules that still largely favors companies that pollute, relocate, and engage in harmful practices. It will not be enough to make the thousands of positive impact companies the only model there is. That's why we want to move forward and to go beyond what has already been done. That's why the Business for a Better Tomorrow was born. And this is also why it will be running through Europe over the coming months. Because we need to change our software and prioritize companies that have a positive contribution to the ecological and social transition and have a real positive impact on society. Pioneering entrepreneurs must be the pillars of a more sustainable and fairer economy. We must guide the economy as a whole towards ecological and social progress. We must encourage the transformation of business models. We also have a duty to ensure that this vision is carried, as we need a strong alternative voice in the coming months to counterbalance the traditional rhetoric that we hear everywhere of traditional organizations with an ambitious message in favor of speeding up the transition of the economy, not of slowing down. So I'm very happy to open this session today. We have a very interesting program, and I hope it will be the starting point of a very big movement in the coming months and probably later on after the election. Thank you very much for attending.
My panelists to join me on the stage, please, and take a seat wherever you'd like. There's no order, so go with whatever you'd like. Thank you. Great, we got everyone. Thank you. Great to be here. My name is Anna Patton. I'm from Pioneers Post, which is an online magazine that covers social enterprise, mission-driven business, impact investing, and we've been doing that for about 20 years. We're a solutions-focused outlet, and we're a social enterprise ourselves. Today, we're going to be talking about positive impact companies as the new pillars of a sustainable and fair European economy. I'm going to briefly introduce our four panelists. So I'm going to say something about you, and hopefully you'll agree with the way I describe you. So first of all, we have Barbara Tracht, who is Minister for the Economic Transition for the Brussels region. And we notice it's not Minister for the Economy, but Minister for Economic Transition. And she's part of the Green Party, the Ecolo Party. Next, we have Salvatore Ianello, who is CEO, but actually calls himself co-pilot at Galère, which you might be familiar with, a Belgian chocolate company, a company that is a supplier to the court of Belgium, which I picture as the king eating your chocolate. I don't know if that's true, but every morning, great. And under his leadership, he has turned this company towards a new paradigm. So we'll be hearing about that in a little moment. Next, we have Victoria Bražūnaitė, who is director of the Lithuanian Social Business Association. And this focuses on advocacy, awareness raising, and capacity building. And her organization is one of the signatories of this manifesto that we're going to hear about a little later. And finally, at the other end, we have Niccolò Cipriani, who is the founder of Rifo, a clothing brand that upcycles textile waste, and I think maybe you've got some of it on display. It's a benefit corporation, and Niccolò describes it also as an activist brand, so we'll find out a bit more about that shortly. So we're here to talk about positive impact companies, which sounds lovely. No one's going to disagree with that, I think, but But let's just try and understand what that actually means. So I'd like to ask each of you to try to define it, maybe in sort of 1 or 2 sentences if you can. What does a positive impact company mean? And I'm going to start, I think, with Salvatore. I'm going to keep you on your toes and switch up the order. Is that one?
You hear?
I'm not sure that's is that right?
The last years and months.
We hear you, but the micro is not functioning.
So usually the last years and months, when we define a positive impact company, it's very limited to most of the time CO2 emission, sometimes pollution of the air, of the water. We believe at Galère that it's a lot more important than this, a lot bigger than this. The magnitude of our challenge is to reinvent the relation of the human with the life on Earth, and consequently the relation of the companies with the environment. Meaning shifting from a model of P of profit, maximization of the profit, into the 4 Ps. I'm sure that you know: people, planet, prosperity, purpose, with a big conviction: no justice for the planet without social justice in our rich country, but also between Western countries and countries from the South.
Great, thank you. And social justice, I think we can see that conflict playing out right outside this conflict of planet and social sort of priorities. Barbara, can I turn to you? In your policies for Brussels, you actually talk about socially and environmentally exemplary business models. Can you explain what that means?
Yes, of course. That's the big question. First, how we would tell it, exemplary or impact companies, and then how we would define it. But I would use the donut, actually, the donut economics theory, and say that an impact company is a company which guarantees human dignity for their suppliers, their workers, and their clients, and the company which respects the environmental limits. So we would actually in Brussels, and as a policy maker, I had to translate this into a law. So it's a bit different when we translate it into a law, but the idea is this one.
Thank you. And do you want to just explain what donut economics is, just in case that's not clear?
So the donut, I will try to explain it very shortly in English, so that's a big challenge. Actually, it's a donut is 2 circles. You see a donut with a hole in the middle. So the inner circle is actually the social dignity, and it represents the social and the social rights, like good health, access to water, to good food, to good education, equality, to housing. This kind of dimension of social dignity. And the outer circle are the limits of the planet, the planetary boundaries, actually. And a healthy economy is an economy that stays in the flesh of the donut.
Great, thank you. And I do recommend Donut Economics, the Kate Raworth book. If you haven't read it, I'm seeing lots of nods, so you're probably all aware of that. Let's turn to Victoria. So you represent and speak out for social enterprises. There's not really a universal definition of social enterprise, but maybe can you tell us how you define it within your organization?
First of all, thank you for inviting for this really valuable initiative. At the beginning, I scared, and I thought that we will speak in French, but it's a little joke. So, as you know, when you start speaking about definition, it can take months, hours, but I will try to answer because we just had very intense discussions in Lithuania. Because if you don't define what social enterprise is, so when we're saying about investments, when we're saying about impact, about ecosystem, so what we're going to, accelerate, what we're going to boost if we are not defined, if it's not defined. So very shortly, in one sentence, we emphasize that social enterprise is first of all business, but the main aim is to not maximize profit, but to bring certain positive impact for society, for environment, for people, planet. So very short in a nutshell. And actually we are using the same concept which was presented in Social Business Initiative in 2011. So I think it's very important when we on EU level to have similar language, then it's easier to be heard on when we're delivering message to policymakers.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so 3 sort of different but kind of overlapping definitions, similar concepts and themes. Nicola, what does a positive impact company mean to you? And maybe you can expand a little bit on your own company and what makes it a positive impact company.
Yes, I think that, well, in my opinion, a positive impact company is a company that is able to create profit while not exploiting the planet and humans. And that it is able actually to give back value to the territory that has been capable to give the company the possibility to create profit, and that is also able to give back value to the planet that has given the possibility to a company to create profit. I think, in my view, the company of the future is a regenerative company. In our case, we are able, from one side, to recycle waste, at the same time to produce garments that have a lower impact compared to virgin productions. But it's also important for us to have social projects on the territory, so we don't only extract richness from our territory, but we are able to regenerate our territory, because otherwise the risk is that maybe in 10 years there aren't more humans available to work for us, or there aren't any more resources that we can use to make our clothes.
Yeah, thank you. And is there a particular figure that you can share, or a particular story of impact, maybe someone you've worked with, or a particular group? So this is to you, Nicola.
Yeah, well, RIFO is based in Prato, that is a textile cluster, a worldwide textile cluster that is really peculiar for 2 things. First one is the recycling processes, and the second one is that there is a lot of migration coming to Prato. In our case, our impact has been to create a project, a vocational training project, where we train vulnerable migrants. Last year, 5 people, this year, 12 people. It's a completely private funded project from us, but also other companies. Maybe the one you know is Gucci, where we train these migrants to learn skills that are slowly fading away. Because most of the Italians today, they don't want to do operative work, but at the same time, there are more and more companies that need new employees. And so we have created this project, completely financed by private companies, where we train and we give these people paid internship to have these experiences. Last year, we worked with 5 migrants from sub-Saharan Africa, and all of them, they were hired then by the companies. This year, with 12 people. We started with rugmen, that are the people that sort clothes and textile waste. And this year, we also work with spinning assistants. And the positive impact of this project is that there are more and more companies asking us to have these people involved in the value chains.
Great, thank you. Salvatore, your company is quite different, but tell us a little bit about the impact that you make. And I understand that you went off sailing around the world for a few years and came back with some very big ideas about changing the company. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So first, the thing is, when I came back to the company, I wanted to change the governance model of the company, because I thought, wow, the last 200 years we have built companies with boss and with people who has to do what the boss said, and cannot think about their job and so on. But at the end of the day, what is a team? A team is a group of brain. So the first thing, we became a collaborative company with a model inspired by Holacracy. Hola, the circle, cracy, the power. But also in the chocolate industry, it's a very unfair industry, and we became fair trade. And we are very proud because in 2021, we have increased by 33% the fair trade beans in Belgium, the volume of fair trade beans. And also we decided to assess our PEF, product environmental footprint. When we got the result of this audit, we were very surprised, because I thought that the problem was more focused on the packaging or transportations. Not at all. Packaging is less than 9% of our footprint. Transportation, 5%. 80% of the environmental footprint in the cocoa industry is related to the techniques of growing raw material. So, meaning mainly cocoa beans. So we made a partnership with a cooperative in Ivory Coast, and with this cooperative, we have developed several different programs, agroforestry programs, bringing a support to the cocoa plants, but also the diversification of revenue for the cocoa farmer. Why? Because no justice for the planet without social justice.
Thank you.
This is some examples.
Yeah, thank you. Victoria, tell us maybe just briefly about an example of a Lithuanian social enterprise and what kind of impact they make and why that's so important.
Actually, when I'm presenting to the people who don't know what a social enterprise model is, I always say that there is no limits to what social enterprise can, where impact it can make. So everything was life around us, planet, people, animals, birds. So all those challenges can be tackled on behalf of social entrepreneurs and social innovators. I can share few examples from my organization members. So one is, for example, and what I would like to emphasize, all those stories, all those social enterprise ideas are coming from some painful personal stories. For example, one is psychological support center for cancer patients and those who recovered from cancer. Then they created online shop of ecological foods. Then they created ecological farm. And now in one of Lithuanian remote region, there is like little cluster of those social enterprises. So then they created hospice. So like seven social enterprises. Very popular because Lithuania, it's in our roots to really respect and protect nature. It's very important, and we have beautiful nature, good water. So for us, environmental ventures is very, very important. Even in my association, there are 3 brands who are doing similar things, like used textile. They are redoing or recycling or upskilling or designing into and selling. There is some also very well-known circular fashion online shop. So another definitely third direction is because our society in Europe is aging society. A lot of services, social services for elderly people, very popular. A lot of a couple examples.
Yeah, thank you. So a
Our
whole mix. The painful personal stories sounds familiar. A lot of the people that we interview will often have a really interesting or a really strong sort of personal reason that causes them to set up a social business. Barbara, let's hear about your shifting economy strategy, because we've got all these sort of inspirational and very energetic entrepreneurs who are coming out with new ideas, but for whatever reason they're struggling. You've gone and created this quite ambitious strategy. Can you tell us a bit about how that came about and what it aims to do for businesses like these?
Actually, the idea was, of course, there was already a lot of some programs helping, let's say, transition companies or impact companies or exemplary company, whatever. But there were one policy amongst others. And the idea when we came was to say that all economic policies should be directed into the transition. So that's why my title is, actually my official title is State Secretary Responsible for the Economic Transition. And in the beginning, there were people asking me, so where is the man in charge, the minister, and the man, it should be a man, of course, in charge of the economy? So the idea was to put the transition in the center of all public economic policies. And public economic policies at a regional level are actually incentives. So we support companies, we give them advice, we help them to cluster, things like that. We fund them also for innovation. And we can host them in Brussels, in the city. And so we are now transforming all the conditions to support them or to host them or to fund them with this idea of the transition to help the most of the companies to help them to make this transition.
Mm-hmm. And I gather one of the big things is one of the incentives is basically to shift all public funding for businesses is going to be easier to access if you're an impact company, and that's going to be over the next, until 2030, right?
In 2030, the only companies who will have access to the public support will be the exemplary companies. But from now on, the exemplary companies, they can have more public support than the others. So that's the transition between now and 2030. It's the transition, but from 2030 it will be only accessible to exemplary companies.
Interesting. So we often hear people complaining that there's not a level playing field, that impact businesses or ethical or social enterprises are sort of on the back foot. You're actually saying we're going to make the playing field in their favor. It's going to be actually that others will struggle to keep up. Let's hear from Salvatore. In terms of the challenges of being, you've been quite ambitious. You've also had, it's quite clear, you've had some finance challenges with the company. I gather you've had some other things. You've had flooding. You've had the price of raw ingredients going up. All difficult things. But what is the biggest challenge of being an ethical or an impact business related to that? Does that make that harder, or how do you balance this?
Today, the most challenging P is the prosperity, is the profit. We had COVID, we had the flooding, so the factory was completely destroyed from A to Z. 15 million euro investment.
This is the factory here in Belgium?
Belgium, yeah. And then inflation. We are a 30 million sales company, and the bottom line, the impact of the inflation was 7 million. So we had to be able to absorb the 7 million. And today, So we thought, okay, we did it. Wow. Now let's go to 2024. But in 2024, the price of the cocoa bean has never been so high in the history of the chocolate industry. So I'm talking double, so 100% higher than 2 years ago. It's not easy, especially that we are not a small company, we are a medium-sized company, but we are competing against multinational companies with with a lot of financial resources. So today, we need really to have in our heart, in our soul, the will to build a new way of a new kind of company, because the financial challenge that we have to address is very, very difficult. And I have to take the risk to be fired. And I'm ready for that, because I will not change the way that we see the world. So
Yeah. And is there something that policy, so you're in Liège, so you're not covered by the Brussels policy, but is there something that you would love to see in your region that would help you?
And first of all, policy or law? Law.
Either.
Okay. It's a personal point of view. Actually, I don't believe that law can can build a sustainable world. Can support, can help, but the magnitude of the challenge is so high that if there is no deep will in the company, in the management, in the board of the directors, in the staff, we cannot change at the right level the system. It's not about law. It's first of all, it's about understanding, to be aware, and to want to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Nicolo, I think this is something you've also talked about. So you talk about being an activist company, and you try to kind of educate or inform your consumers. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, I think like today one of the main challenge in the clothing industry is price, because people are used to pay at really cheap prices, and they understand what are the hidden costs behind a cheap product. And so I think the main challenge we have is to educate people towards how the price is composed, to spread awareness about the impacts of the fast fashion industry or the fast luxury industry, because at the same time there are companies that have really low prices and companies that have really high margins. And the solution, I think, it's in the middle. But the real challenge is that there aren't really big, at least in Italy, education programs in the schools, elementary schools, about how a price is composed and what are the impacts behind it. Because there is one directive now from European level about extended product responsibility. Because when we buy a cheap product, we don't know that there is a hidden cost about deleting it, about where it will go. That's a public cost. No one knows that there are many public costs behind that. And actually, it's good that you pay a tax if you make a product that is not circular, that it's linear. We need really to spend a lot of time educating people about the hidden impacts about paying a product with a low price, because especially young people, they don't realize what there is behind, what are the risks in the long term when we finance a certain economy instead of another one.
Yeah, and I believe you do that via your social media, for example, with your followers. You try to get this message out. How do people respond to that? Do you think they pick it up?
Yes, through social media and through the blog. And we try a lot to explain what are the values behind. For instance, we are against sales. We are against sales because when you make a product, long-term product, sales doesn't make sense. Why at the end of December I can buy a sweater for 100 euros and then after 1 week I can buy it for 80 euros? It's a product that has to last. It doesn't make sense. If I buy something that is really good quality, the value should be the same always.
Yep.
I think that you need a lot of campaigns and a lot of awareness policies, awareness campaigns in order to make people aware about this and what is behind. Because we are manipulated sometimes to buy products that we don't need.
Yep, yep. Victoria, what is the sort of biggest, there are probably many, but can you sort of pick out the one biggest sort of challenge or concern that you hear from your members? What's the thing that they often say that they are struggling with?
In Lithuania, social enterprises are originated from civil society movements. You know, our success story in fighting independence from the Soviet Union. So our society, they are very strong in solving these social challenges, social problems. But at the same time, this is consequence of some being part of the Soviet system. When the market economy, private initiative was evil, yes, because, and maybe we already 30 years independent, but still people, we see that people lack entrepreneurial skills. Sometimes for them it's difficult to how I can make money when, you know, people are struggling, some disabled children or something like that. So for them, they have big heart, and so we need to really develop that, set the right prices in order. Yeah, as my colleague said, when there is a low price, there is a certain maybe negative impacts behind that. Yeah, so I would say entrepreneurial skills they would need to develop.
And you, as your association, you've had a bit of a milestone lately. Do you want to tell us about that and why that matters?
Yes, so in December we achieved that our parliament passed a law, adopted included a definition of social enterprise in SME law. So for us, for ecosystem, it was important that social enterprise definition is defined not in a concept or recommendation or some paper, declarative paper, but in a law. Because if it's in a law, then you can put in place many serious incentives or even other laws such as social procurement, tax incentives, and different other things. So we are very happy for that.
Yeah, congratulations on that. We've got a representative of policy here, and we've got the entrepreneurs, and sometimes I guess the communication between them might not always be that easy. So I want to try and answer some questions around that. So Barbara, what can businesses do to make the work of policymakers easier? So how can they sort of best communicate with you?
I think it's a very appropriate moment right now because of the coming of the European election and also the Belgian election, but that's another point. Actually, it's really easy to speak with traditional companies because they have very well established federations and they have a lot of power, to be clear. So I think it's really important what you are doing right now, and you have to talk to the Commission just in front of us, or to the candidates for the next election. I think I really agree with Philippe what he said about we don't have time to take a break. And of course it's something that we hear amongst politicians right now that it's time to take a break. So it's the moment to ask companies that you don't want policymakers to take a break. And I think because it's urgent, we need everything. So we need awareness, we need good leaders in companies and impact companies. We need incentives, and that's what we have done in Brussels, but we also need regulation. And it's urgent. And because the competition is still so unfair between transition or impact companies or exemplary companies and traditional companies. So it's the right moment to talk to policymakers.
So keep the pressure on and keep letting them know that you are there and that you want things to change. To the two entrepreneurs then, what is there something maybe that people in the Brussels bubble or policymakers maybe you think they often aren't aware of, or maybe something that you'd like them to understand about what it's like to run an impact business? Salvatore.
Can you repeat the question?
Is there something that people sitting here in Brussels, sort of far from the front line of business, doing business every day, is there something maybe that they don't understand about what it's like, or a message that you'd like to get to them?
I would say that to go into this transition is to take a very big risk today, because there are a lot of companies who are not at all, or they say that they are, but they are not. Yeah. And so it's unfair. In this way, it's unfair. And I agree with you. That's the place where the politics and law can help companies who want really, in the true life, to change the world.
Thank you. Nicolo, do you have anything to say to policymakers?
Yeah, maybe one thing, especially when you have a startup or like a young company, is time. Because like the market now is so quick that you need really to react quickly, and sometimes policymakers arrive too late. And especially now where we face like difficult times, we need really to be quick to react. Otherwise, you risk that young companies that have let's say a better vision of the future, they don't pass this period. So I think time is the challenge now.
Yeah. So operating on different timelines, maybe need to connect a bit better. Victoria, I guess your role is often sort of operating between policy and business. Do you have any tips for either side in terms of how that communication can be more effective?
It's just unbelievable. When I thought, what is my key message today, when I was looking into our title, Business for a Better Tomorrow, I also thought that we don't have time for tomorrow, really. And Philippe mentioned that, and Barbara mentioned that, and I think what's very important to search for the points where we agree, to look for the points where we find a common ground. So I think this fact that we are living in a really pressing, in a moment of very pressing crises, a lot of crises after crisis, and we don't know what tomorrow is bringing, I think, and we harmed planet so badly, so we are, as humans, we are destroying ourselves, so we don't have time. And I think this fact is uniting us for the common action. And so why we're gathered here today? Because we really realize this sad truth. So that's. So in association, we're trying to look for this common ground where we are, where we can come together as humans to save us, and that was our key to success, to convincing parliamentarians to pass this law. For example, the Ministry of Economy, which is taking care of this policy of social entrepreneurship, they had another idea, maybe to wait, maybe have a concept. We said, no, we don't have for declarative. And we convinced Parliament to really support ecosystem. So we had some really interesting story in Lithuania. So, yeah,
Okay.
united by humanity and,
So
survive.
find common ground. That's your call to action. Let's hear from some of the others. Barbara, what is your sort of one final thought or request or call to action for people here? What do you think they can do?
Yeah, you have to go on with talking to policymakers, and I think it's also good to be coherent, because I think if you are here, you have probably. You probably read the IPCC reports, and then you know how bad it's going. But to be coherent, it's really helping, and to do something. But that's why you're here.
Okay.
It's also really helpful.
Yeah. Thank you, Nicola. What is your sort of one call to action or a request of people sitting here?
Well, I think that today companies, but also like governments, they need to be brave enough to change the system that so far we have implemented, and we need this change. And I always say that, well, it's a Chinese proverb, is that when the wind of change blows, there are people that build walls and there are other people that build windmills. I think we need to build windmills.
Great. Nice proverb. Salvatore, have you got a proverb for us? Or
Oh yeah. I would say, beyond politics, beyond law, beyond CEOs who want to change the world, I think that the last 200 years, our human society has been driven by the economy, and in the economy, ladies and gentlemen, as consumer, you are the key player. You can change the world by shifting from a consumer into a consume actor. And I'm sure, I believe in it. We can change the world by with our way of consuming.
Thank you. So I love the way we've come up with common ground, coherence, courage, and consumer power. So without even planning it, we've come up with a new slogan. We'll finish there. Sorry, we've run a little bit over time, but please say thank you to our brilliant panel. And before we leave the stage, I'll just introduce our next speakers. It's Hendrik Naar from Make.org and Ines Consoni from the Young European Federalists. They're going to speak to us about EU citizens' expectations.
Okay, hello, my name is Ines. Thank you very much for inviting us to be here today. It's a pleasure. Since we have a very short time, I'll be quick. So Jeff Europe, the Young European Federalists, together with Make.org, we launched EuroHope on the 9th of May in Strasbourg, which is a participatory campaign ahead of the 2024 European elections. It's supported by a coalition of more than 40 actors, including Movement Impact France. In its first phase, the campaign gathered 1.5 million votes from across the EU, and more than 5,000 proposals were submitted to a multilingual platform created by Make.org called EuroHope, which is available in all member states. People across Europe shared with us 15 priorities within 7 dimensions, from EU reform to climate change and environment. And what we come here today to tell you is that citizens are ready for reform. And many of these reforms are going to come from businesses, not just from the innovation that you will bring, but also from building inclusive workplaces and from thinking about the world of tomorrow.
I'm here to provide you with some insights on what was actually discussed on this platform and what are the consensus that we identified. Because indeed, as Ines said, business plays a role in this transition, and it was an important point that was brought up by the young Europeans in Your Hope. Many Europeans care about it, and I guess that's already a very good news for tonight and for your discussions. In our representative results, so I want to underline that we consulted young Europeans and gathered 1.5 million votes, and we have statistically representative results. We distinguished between consensuses, so where everyone agreed, and divisions, where there was a divide of more or less 50-50. And I want to first highlight some consensuses. The good news is that out of the 15 ones that we identified and that you can find behind the QR code, 5 are on environmental matters. So 5 are really at the core of the climate and biodiversity debate that we see. And amongst them, just to give you some highlights, was strengthening sustainable European industries and recycling. So here the clear focus on the role of business is recognized by the young Europeans. There is a call for more responsible corporate practices in terms of pollution, in terms of waste production, in terms of how can we discourage greenwashing, and how can we put in place better recycling processes. I give you some examples of what was shared by young Europeans. Sasha, a citizen, 32 years old, said we should create larger fines for businesses that pollute and destroy the environment across all countries. 76% approval. Or Laura, 21 years old, says waste sorting rules should be standardized across Europe to simplify recycling, has 80% approval. So we clearly see that this is young people and their ideas, and they include businesses in the equation when it comes to environmental and sustainability matters. Another one was to encourage Made in Europe, for example. You can see on page 36, reducing dependencies on foreign markets here, for example. Switching to the controversies that you also find in the report, so where we had a switch, like a shift between 50-50 more or less, for and against, we saw that the role of taxes was a divisive debate and how we can use taxes to put forward this shift. And there was a large array of solutions regarding taxation and how to tax and what to tax and who to tax. But whether it was finance European initiatives, financing the ecological transition, etc., it remained divisive in the sense of, okay, who should take the responsibility in this context? One example from Nicolas was we should create a European tax on very high estates in order to finance redistributive European policies, where we had more or less a 50-50 divide. So more is behind the QR code, so you see the whole report. We just had a glimpse of what happened on the platform, but I hand back to Ines for the final remarks.
So right now that we have finished the consultation, we are working with civil society organizations, and we are going to bring the campaign to different political parties. In the panel before, this was said, that we need to speak with the future candidates, we need to speak on who is going to be in the European Parliament, about what Europe young people want to have. We are building a tool together that not only allows the exploration of the agenda of hope, again in 22 languages, but also captures responses from European political parties. And this way, voters have a place where they can find the priorities of European parties as well. But again, businesses have a role to play here, because much of the innovation and the solutions that are going to happen, they are not going to come out from the European Parliament of the Commission. They are going to come from you. And it's not just about products or a new idea. It's also about the way you treat employers and you take care of people that are part of the company, which was also mentioned in the panel before. So we invite you to scan the QR code, and yeah, I hope you find it useful, and Hendrik and I will be around, so ask us anything. Thank you again.
Good afternoon/evening to all, and welcome to this panel, Positive Impact Economy as the New Pillars for a Sustainable and Fair European Economy. Now, I'll keep my introduction short because we are short on time. Essentially, the Green Deal and pro-EU environmental policy is very much at a crossroad. And the Green Deal is facing a crisis of legitimacy from both citizens as well as businesses as we move from the policy setting phase to that of policy implementation. Pro-environment rules, I think, and we all agree on this panel are crucial, especially in thinking about future business opportunities and development across the EU, but it needs to be accepted by all, and I think it's no surprise that the farmers' protest is a key example of where we may be falling short of getting everyone on board on this Green Deal and pro-environment transition. And I don't think it needs to be reminded that this conversation over Green Deal policymaking and policies are virtually useless if we do it in our EU corner without the help and support and without enticing other superpowers of the likes of China and the US. So today's conversation is very much about getting to the core of the Green Deal, what the key issues are, but also thinking forward in what is a really post-2024 Green Deal agenda that is fair, that is just, that is sound and on a business perspective and supports business opportunities across the continent. And so with me to discuss all of these things and solve the environment problem in about 35 minutes, so let's get ready. I have four fantastic speakers. I have Marek Udon, who you're a professor at Université Libre de Bruxelles, and you are the president of the Finance Watch NGO. We have Patrick ten Brink on my right. You're the SG of the European Environmental Bureau. Marina Kartelis at the far right. You're CEO of Butterfly Box, a tech company that's dedicated to biodiversity protection. And Philippe Zawati, you're CEO of the Green Investment Fund Mirova and Movement Impact's spokesperson for EU affairs, if I'm correct. Now, Marek, I want you to set the scene. I mean, back in 2019, the last EU elections, Green Deal and green policymaking was all over the news and was a critical part of the conversation. If you fast forward five years later, is that crisis of legitimacy that we're talking about? What's happened?
Yeah, good question.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I have 3 minutes. So first, as an academic, I mean, we really live in a paradox in the sense that on the one hand, we have scientists telling us that basically we need to speed up. And at the same time, we have kind of a fatigue or kind of a start of a fatigue from the business sector, at least part of the business sector saying that we need to pause. So this type of paradox is of course, kind of a compelling. And why do we have this paradox? I think it's because basically some of these measures have, I mean, the impact of these measures is very differentiated. And that's something we should not forget. So we tend to think in terms of average, like the average impact, while in fact the impact of many of these measures or the policies are extremely differentiated, with some companies for which basically everything goes well. They really have enough room for maneuver to cope with everything we want, to do the efforts that is required. And then, and that's probably the link with the farmers' contest just a few meters from here, we have people who are more vulnerable, who are more affected basically by financial crisis and all sorts of crises that are not able, without additional support, to cope with what we want. And this is probably the story today, is that basically in many of our measures, in many of our policies, and in many of the indicators that we use for these policies, we lack an integration of environmental and social indicators. We have policies that basically target environmental goals. We have policies that target social goals. But at the same time, we don't have many policies integrating the two, making the story not complete, and basically creating, I think, part of the protest that we have.
We'll go back to the, creating, I guess, new tools to create the synergy that you're describing. But I want to turn to you, Patrick. I mean, you follow the developments of the Green Deal very closely. What's changed, I guess, in the way we think and talk about the Green Deal, especially within networks of the European Environmental Bureau is? What are the echoes that you get?
Okay, thanks very much for the question. And just to say, the European Environmental Bureau, we represent 180 civil society organizations across Europe. Okay, with your question to start, you talk about green policy making. I'd like to say that the Green Deal, it may be called the Green Deal, but it's also about health. If you look at issues on PFAS, or you look at issues of air pollution, it's also about security. If you look at independence from Russian fossil fuel, it's a range. It looks on jobs as well. If you look at the measures and what they're trying to do, it's about resilience, which is also fundamentally important for agriculture. So I think part of the thinking is that it's not just green, it's everything. So we've moved to part of the thinking as well as we used to have silo thinking, then we talked about integration, and now everyone realizes everything's connected. So part of the thinking is we need everyone to talk together to be able to make sure we have policies that work for each of us. There's also a clear understanding of the inevitability of action and the essential nature of action. Things are going to get worse if we don't act now. People say they're tired, we should have a pause, but if you look at actually how difficult it is to address climate change, I mean, I think we'll be a lot more tired if we don't do more about it now. So I think that's also part of the dialogue. And then there's a bit of a tension between one fatigue and a future fatigue. But it's not only about crisis, it's also opportunities. So a big issue, and also especially for here, it's a Green Deal. There's a deal aspect in this language. So it's also about opportunities to act. If you look at heat pumps, if you look at solar panels, how many thousands and thousands of jobs could be created? It's about new skills and regions. It's about solidarity. If you also think on the social dimension, it's about building renovation and actually saving money for households and addressing energy poverty. So there's also a dialogue on all of these things. So I think that's a big issue. But then the last thing maybe here is there is a bit of a challenge between discussing the here and now and the medium and the long term. So there is that tension. And historically, a lot of policies were made for the now, but we need to make, and the Green Deal is trying to have a transition for the future. So it's trying to think about the future, but then how can you satisfy the present, but at the same time ensure that the medium and long term are fixed? And that's the crunchy debate, and that's also why the farmers are out. But just on the farmers are out, one thing, their problem is not environmental legislation. Their problem is how much the value is shared along the supply chain. So we also need to have a discussion of honesty and the facts about where the problems are, what the burdens are, and that's the last bit of what people are talking about, is that false information, false news, disinformation, and how people are trying to manipulate the reality to actually win political points. A lot of that's around the agriculture. We saw with the nature restoration law, the pesticides law, and so on. So that's another thing people are talking about. How can we actually communicate science-based facts to each other about the truth along the value chain, make sure all of us have the information, the truth to take the decisions? And if that's so, it's a bit of a complex answer to your simple question. So.
It's quite complex, but I do enjoy what you were saying. I like what you were saying, that the Green Deal is not just environment, it's absolutely everything. And turning to you, Marina, I mean, when we think of the Green Deal, we think combustion engine ban, we think 55% targets, but there seems to be a conversation that is completely missing on that of biodiversity. Now, can you tell us a little more about, A, is the EU doing enough? And B, perhaps, what is it that business do, like yours, to protect biodiversity in a way that the EU policymakers haven't thought of?
Of course, it's not enough. First of all, every time we're asking me, what is biodiversity? A new yogurt brand? Not. But the truth is that also the biodiversity is also important, and certainly the booster for economy. 70% of our economy depends on the services provided by the nature, and we have lost 70% since only 50 years. The Green Deal is initially focused on combating, of course, climate change and to achieve carbon neutrality for the climate. And the problem is that we're talking not enough in the biodiversity. No media talk about it, and the impact of biodiversity loss are not always visible. it's difficult to mobilize attention of politicians and publics to make change. So we just try to do with Butterfly Box a new project to sensibilize people to do some concrete actions that way. But the impact of biodiversity on the global economy is already more significant than climate change. Sickness, fall in agricultural production, soil are more and more poor, infertility. We talk about it less, but because there is less resources available to raise awareness and finance solution. But Butterflies is one private initiative who try to organize a lot of things for businesses, governments, schools, to raise awareness, education and actions for biodiversity in urban areas. I hope that our children would not be the victims and ask one day what is a bee. So that's what is we are very afraid of that. Maybe
Thank you.
Sorry if my English is not so good.
No, I thought it was very clear. No worries at all. Philippe, I want to turn to you because there is this conversation over what the Green Deal looks like and what the policy making entails. But there is a fundamental issue at the heart of it all, and really policy making generally. It's that of money. And you had this green investment fund. Has the EU gone far enough when it comes to unleashing green financing, in your view, and should it do more? Of course.
Il marche pas bien, hein?
Of course, they can do more, and they must do more. I mean, I don't think that finance and financing and money has been put aside in the Green Deal. That's clearly not the case. It's at the opposite. It's at the heart of all the regulations that has been taken these last 5 years. And it started by that. I mean, I remember 7 years ago, exactly same day, same month, we started the high-level expert group on sustainable finance. And so the European Commission asked us about how can we build a more sustainable financial system in Europe. And all the big regulations around, for example, taxonomy or CSRD, at the end of the day, they are the final objective is to give more information to investors. So money and investment is clearly at the heart of all the regulation. The problem is it working or not? That's the question. And today the problem is that all that has been done is still at the margin of the system, you know. And the heart of the system, the heart of the financial system is still the same. So we have added to that green bonds and taxonomy and green funds and SFDR and new reporting tools and so on and so forth. But the short-termism of the markets is still there, and the seek for profit is still there, and so we clearly need probably a step forward. The good thing is that, and it's exactly the purpose of what we are doing today and of this coalition, is to identify that there is a part of the financing system which is still moving, which is already moving. So I mean, we are one of them, but there are a lot of what we call impact investing, sustainable investment, even more traditional or mainstream finance who are integrating more and more environmental and social impact into what they are doing. So I think this is really very important for the Commission, for the European Union to do today, to go from the regulation to the implementation, and to do that, I think that identifying the part of the system which is already moving is key, and to give them incentive to go faster, to move forward, and to yes, to pull the system behind them. And today probably we lack some tools to incentive more. Another probably very important topic is the way the European Union and the country and the European countries are also using public financing, and how we can use public financing to be an incentive and to make leverage effects and attract more public money and more private money in the areas where we want to be, that we want to finance. So it's about what we call blended finance or whatever, but it's just using public money more strategically. And more strategically with in mind the fact that it can drive and thrive private investments.
If you allow me just to ask you a quick question on this. I mean, the idea of using public money as a leverage is something that the Commission is trying to do. Is it, in your view, so far working?
I mean, everybody's speaking about blended finance and using public money as a leverage. I mean, it's clearly, I mean, you can go in every conference. I mean, it's, it's a mantra that you will have everywhere. But I think the tools are very small today. There was one big initiative, which was the Juncker Plan a couple of years ago, but it was only guarantees that the EIB and the EU was giving to increase loans to sustainable economy. But I think we can go much more further. Let's look at the agriculture, for example. We need a lot of money to change the agricultural system. And today, what does the European Union is doing? They are putting a lot of money on subsidies. So let's just imagine that you take 10% of the agriculture plan, I mean the PAC, and you take 10% of this, and you don't give this 10% to the to the farmers through subsidies, but you take it as an investment to be leveraged by public money in order to change the system. And then the next phase, you go from 10% to 20%. I think it would change completely the way we think about using the public money in the system.
Okay, I'm hoping Ursula von der Leyen, drops in.
She was just next
corner, so
door,
and
so
and is given.
I missed her.
Cap reform. But anyway, without going too much into the farmers' conversation, I mean, Marek, I want you to take actually on what Philippe has said and what you think, is necessary for green financing and green economic support, I guess, to expand. But more generally, when we think about the future green, fair, just economy, what is it that's critically needed for things to change radically towards an effective transition?
In 2 minutes.
Again in 2 minutes.
So just let me highlight 2 points. First, I think there's a question of certainty versus uncertainty. What has been really detrimental the last months is all the lobby which has happened basically to make the transition more uncertain, to slow down, to basically try to influence policymakers also in the sense that basically maybe all these measures will not happen anymore and so on. And why is it really detrimental? Because we know that companies basically need certainty. They really hate uncertainty. And when you have more uncertainty, basically you will be less likely to invest or to make the necessary investments basically that can have the societal impact also. So first element, uncertainty. The second element is basically to get back to this notion of fairness in the sense that also if we want the green transition or the Green Deal basically to happen, we need to make sure that citizens, policymakers, economic agents basically are convinced that this is fair. And what does it require? Basically that, for instance, all the public money, the subsidies, all the aid basically goes in an efficient way and basically adding more selectivity. The fact that we give money to any company in many cases, including, for instance, during the COVID crisis, at least not fully, but in many cases also, while some of these companies do not require that, do not need it, basically slow down the transition in the sense that if we look at the theory of the commons, I'm an academic, common action is possible when we all have the feeling that everyone contributes, isn't it? If we don't have the feeling that everyone contributes, then basically it's going to slow down that. And we need basically this feeling that when you are weaker, basically you get a little bit more. When you are less weak or you are stronger, basically you have a bit more. And indeed, in the Brussels bubble, we have this basically feeling these last weeks or months of basically pessimism about the evolution of not only the Parliament, but probably also the Green Deal. But I guess there are still some potential room for maneuver also in the future. There are things in the pipeline also. Everything has not happened yet. And also, I mean, if we want to take a positive note and to finish with a positive note, also there are cases, for instance, in Poland, you know, I'm half Polish, so in Poland, for instance, when you look at the last elections, many people were convinced that the populist government basically would win again. And there was a coalition, and then basically this coalition comes up with a much more basically interesting discourse about the environment. So we need this coalition. We need coalitions of the willing, basically people who are convinced that basically we need to combine these.
Brilliant. Patrick, a question to you. I mean, again, what's to you the biggest and most relevant reform that needs to take place? And actually, in thinking about the Green Deal in the business context, but actually I'm interested also to hear your views on the role that businesses can play in influencing policy making in thinking about the post-2024 Green Deal.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much. I'd like to start just by talking about what we need to do immediately. One thing is there's a lot in the package. You mentioned it's legislation, but it's also objectives, it's also commitments, it's also strategies, it's also money. So it's not just legislation. It's important to remember that. But the first thing we do need to is implement. And there's two threads. The first one is investment. We really need to make sure it invests. I think you covered a lot of the topics, but just to add two other elements. One is public procurement. It's 14% of GDP. If you make a green public procurement, you got a lever that works. So we should not forget that. The second thing is they're currently negotiating about the Growth and Stability Pact and the issue of the 3% debt ceiling. I mean, we shouldn't constrain our ability to finance by this 3% and by austerity type reflections. We need to make sure that countries have the ability to invest the money for the transition. Otherwise, we're not going to get there. But the other thing we need is implement the rule of law and make sure it's a level playing field. This is also important for business so that the vanguards don't get undermined by those sloppy. But there's a whole other dimension which we haven't talked about that much, but the last session did, about the issue of the just transition. That has to be absolutely key to this whole process. We need to make sure that it's fundamentally integrated, not end of pipe. Under the current Green Deal, under the Social Climate Fund, another investment issue, there's a good contribution of money that should go to the lowest 20% earning, and that is fundamentally important that we keep doing this through the renovation wave. We need the people on board. So this gets to we need to think through, and this is, at one level, it's about citizens and affordability and justice. But another level, it's also about them being able to buy the goods and services that are sustainable and be part of the solution. So trying to I don't normally take a leaf out of automotive companies, CEOs, things, but Henry Ford, basically, he wanted to increase the salaries of his staff, and people said, this is insane, what are you doing? You're going to lose money. He said, no, imagine they have enough money to be able to buy a car, imagine how rich I'll be. And so in this context of the ecological transition, we need to make sure that every citizen can have sufficient income to be able to buy it, so the sustainable choice can be the easy choice. So it's actually in full integration of the sort of social agenda with the environmental agenda, which then creates a basis for a demand pull for a lot of issues, whether it's on heat pumps or solar cells or sustainable products. And then this actually creates a virtuous cycle that we need to move on. Then in a wider context, we also need to communicate for these people, communicate the benefits of what Europe is doing, the legislation within this disinformation that we have around. People just don't realize what's useful. And so that is actually not just for citizens, but also throughout the business of all the various different possibilities. And then I didn't really answer your question yet. So what was your so then the question is how can business be engaged? And I think that there are, if you look at any industry, there are the leaders, there are the laggards, and there are the followers. And I think what we need to do is to talk to the business who are the leaders and say, okay, how are you innovating? What are you producing? What do you need to keep going? And this morning we were talking in Antwerp on PFAS. And of course, you have a lot of laggards in that area, but we have the possibility possibility of industry innovating towards clean chemicals. So we have a huge series of skills in the innovation sector. So what I would say is let's listen to those companies who are actually innovating and actually offer the substitutes, whether it's a technology or a product or a service, to the ones that are actually yesterday's solutions. And then if we think, then what do you need to multiply this? How can we build on the success? And that was also one or two of the previous panelists said that. Then you can have a very, very interesting agenda. And then I wouldn't myself wish pretend to be able to have those answers, because we actually need to listen to the progressive business, which is why we're all here anyway. So I'll shut up and then leave space for the next one.
Brilliant, thank you. Marina, I want to turn to... I want to turn to you actually, because Patrick talked about this concept of integration and thinking about the Green Deal in the most holistic way, if you will. What's your take in terms of how to improve the interactions between civil society organizations, social businesses like yours, and policy making? Because it sounds like you're not exactly hearing yourselves perfectly. What is it that can be done more of to have this integration that Patrick's been describing?
But for me, first of all, we need, by educating children at school, first of all, there is a really problem about that. Certainly in my work for biodiversity, like I said, nobody knows what is it at school. Really, education is a really big problem. Then businesses, also institution, local government, citizen. So we try with my project to create link between every people, citizen who organize a lot of things, and we just began because it's a small startup, but we try to sensitive about the importance of biodiversity through simple and concrete actions to create living corridors of the fauna and the flora in the cities. So that's what I'm doing in my working. I don't know for the rest, but we're creating a biodiversity. I think it's a good idea to create a biodiversity currency, like certificate biodiversity as well as carbon footprint certificate to reward, to innovate concrete action and to motivate everybody. Collaborating between different actors such as government, businesses and essential and NGOs necessary to develop to an effective and fair biodiversity certificate systems. We need institutional and financial support to create an appropriate regulatory framework. And we need scientific research centers to help us to measure the impacts and concrete action and the evolution of biodiversity. We really need management and analysis tools, such on the geolocation application that we have in the Butterfly Box project, which allows us to share the collects of the observation and the data to evaluate progress and biodiversity preservations. What else? Each species that disappear represent a piece of our shared history, a loss that we can afford to let go. So I think we have a lot of things to create a link and help, how can I say, for citizens, create links to do something all together for more business. I'm doing that in the companies with all team building I'm doing a lot of program in the school, nearly everywhere, but I don't know what to do more. Everybody do what he can.
Brilliant, thank you so much. And this is such a helpful sort of set of good concrete ideas. It's really a toolbox that we can start from. I mean, Philippe, I wonder what you think of what's been said in terms of the role that businesses can play in helping this transition go through and enroll. I wonder also what can businesses like yours, like positive businesses, do in starting a conversation not just with other EU businesses, but businesses from across continent, because ultimately this question of green transition applies equally to the EU than it does to China, than it does to the US. How do we include them in a conversation without doing that in our own little corner and hoping that maybe one day the Brussels effect will work, but, you know.
Not only the US and China, but all the rest of the world. I mean, emerging countries. I mean, today that's one of the biggest problems. I mean, clearly, if you look at finance, because I mean, we are speaking about financing the transition in Europe, but what about financing the transition elsewhere? Today, I mean, we are investing in energy transition in Africa, for example. If you look at energy transition in Africa, about only 2% of the investments in electrification and solar energy all over the world is made in Africa. 2%. Okay, there is as much investment in Africa in solar as in the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, I could have said Belgium, but I mean that's same. You know, very sunny countries. Anyway. No, that's a really big issue, because this is where probably the battle will be won or lost. I mean, because we know that we need to build in emerging countries as much infrastructure in the next 20 years that we have been in the last 2 centuries. So, but anyway, it was just to say that yes, it's a global issue. It's a global issue, and also the conversation, as you said, is a multi-geographic situation. I mean, and when it comes, for example, to sustainable finance, the discussion is very different. Either you are in Europe or in the US or in Asia. So we have business all over the world. In the US, the pushback that we see today in Europe about sustainability, we have seen it 2 years ago in the US. I mean, since 2 years ago in the US, or maybe more, very strong pushback against sustainable finance. You know, I mean, they call sustainable finance the woke finance in the US, and there is a very, very strong pushback again. It's a kind of political battle. It's a political topic today. And in Asia, it's still seen as a way to make more money and to bring more performance to the investments. In Europe, it's basically a question of regulation. So when you are a global company like us, I mean, you have to adapt your speech and the way you explain what you do, depending on the area where you are. So again, I mean, we are at crossroads. We have a lot of today big pushback, even clashbacks, and so the first thing that we need to do as European is not to give up, and to move forward and to prove by example, but also to be not to be naive as well, and to protect ourselves. Because of course the situation and the products are clearly not the same in Europe and elsewhere.
Yeah, and to lead by example as much as we can, and also adapt the conversation to the different set of expectations and the way we talk about green financing when it comes to the US, France, emerging countries, markets, and
absolutely. And I mean, you can do this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure you're doing it already. I've been told that we're running out of time, but I do want to conclude very briefly. If all of you could, in a few seconds, sort of try to give me the one immediate, and summarizing a little bit what you said as well, to give me the one immediate reform that is required at the EU level to unleash the Green Deal potential, if you will. If there's one thing that you could do, and if you were to meet Ursula von der Leyen just around the corner, what would you tell her? I'll give you, starting with you, Patrick.
Okay. Deliver on the promises, the Sustainable Food System Law and the REACH revision.
Okay, that is very concrete. Great, thank you very much. Philippe.
Let's do finance the transformation of agriculture, for example, which is basically the same, but yeah.
There's a common theme, yeah.
to link with the reason why we are here, to have basically such a federation. I forgot the exact name of the federation, being very vocal at EU level, and basically to have kind of a counterpart to big federation such as Business Europe, for instance, so that there is a real strong counterpart in a discussion, so that it's not just all companies believe that, but that there is a diversity of views.
Brilliant. More diversity protection. Okay, and I think clearly
more open minds, more human, social working, more...
What a great summary. Yeah, and love each other. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I'm sorry this was so short and we could have continued for hours, but unfortunately time is of the essence. So thank you very much, and if you can join me in thanking our amazing panel. And thank you very much. Thank you very much. And if you stick around, we'll have a presentation of the Business for a Better Tomorrow manifesto with a set of names I'm not going to read because I'm going to trash people's names. So I'll leave you to it. Thank you very much.
Introduce this session panel, right? Okay, hello everyone. So we're here to introduce the manifesto. As you probably know, it's on the coalition's website, and I encourage you to go have a look. Just for a quick introduction. First of all, we applaud the strength of this coalition. Somebody in one of the earlier panels talked about how strong coalition building can be in facing adverse forces, and sometimes when the odds are not in our favor. And so we really strongly believe in this coalition that's presenting this manifesto today. This is a time when powerful adverse forces are trying to reverse our social values, our democratic ideals, and obviously our green environmental goals. And so that's really why this matters so much. Not only do you have organizations, companies, people from basically all across the continents coming together today to present this platform, but you also have content that really matters. And that is also why we're so proud of our message, and that's why we believe in its value. So to sum it up, as you probably noticed, if you've had a look at the document, you have 5 main points. First of all, ensuring the ambitious implementation of the Green New Deal. It sounds kind of obvious, but it's not in the present political debate. As you may know, outside of this room, there's a lot of questioning of the Green New Deal for Europe, and we still believe in it, and we need to go much farther than that. The second point is promoting the recognition and visibility of companies committed to the environmental and social transition. You've heard some of them here today. There are thousands, more than thousands, out there all across Europe, and they need our voice because they don't always have that political support locally. And the more we regroup and work together, the better we'll do. The third big point is promoting businesses that actively contribute to the common good, especially purpose-driven companies in Europe. And we have organizations that are actually representing those specific companies here today. So I encourage you to have a look at what that means and how it can really change the landscape when it comes to business. And then the fourth point is encouraging the transformation of business models. That's also extremely important. This is not just a time for new businesses to come in. It's also a time for existing businesses to be able to change their own business model with the people that work within those organizations in order to work towards a better tomorrow, right? And so changing the economy also needs to be done from within. And the final point is making social enterprises the pillars of tomorrow's economy. So yes, we are defending the Green New Deal, but and the last and not and also a very important point, last but not least, is making social enterprises the pillars of tomorrow's economy. So while we work on that environmental aspect, on governance, on purpose, it's also extremely important to keep the social model alive and to make it even better. So with that said, that was just a quick intro as to the manifesto and why we believe in it so much. And so I believe the next person to speak is Arthur. Oh, I didn't say who I was. I'm the chairman of Entreprendre Vert. So we are the French Green Economy Association. We've been around for almost 20 years now. And we are the proud founding co-founder member organization of Ecopreneur, which is a fabulous, fantastic green federation of sustainable business. And Arthur is our director, and I'm very proud to give you the mic.
Okay, thank you, Frédéric. So the name of this business federation that was just referred to, and thank you for that, Mr. Hudon, is the European Sustainable Business Federation Ecopreneur Europe. And we have two not only members but also board members here in the panel, and I would just like to be very short because first of all I agree with everything that's being said, and I agree not just personally but on behalf of the 3,500 enterprises that are in our membership in 7 member states, and these are cross-sectoral. They're from all different types of markets. The common thing is that they're all committed to sustainable business. And Ecopreneur is their political voice, and I forgot to say, most of these, like 3,400, are small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, the most important things for us for the coming years are 3 things. The first one is to implement the Green Deal. A lot of that has already been said, but I want to say a bit more. The second thing is to create markets, to create a level playing field, because that's not there. You heard it already. There's so much unfair competition towards sustainable solutions. And the third thing is that SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, the sustainable ones in our membership, yeah, they know what they want. But even then, it's complex to create sustainable products and services. And the other 25 million SMEs in Europe don't have a clue. Many of them want to, but they need help. They need advice on how to do it, and they need support. So there will be more about that from Thibaut. First thing, the Green Deal. Well, actually, we are very happy with the Green Deal. We've been lobbying for the elements thereof since 2016 when we were founded, and now there's so much legislation coming towards us that it's really a lot. But still, why is it so important to not stop after the elections? Especially since a move to the, far right is expected, there is more resistance, as there is today outside these walls. And it's understandable because it's so much. But if we don't implement this legislation, nothing will happen. For instance, already on paper, the member states promised to stop with subsidizing fossil fuels. But they don't. They just keep doing it. It needs to be implemented, and that has to be done by the member states themselves, but also by the European Commission with implementing acts and delegated acts. So after the elections, we will be very busy as Ecopreneur with making sure that these acts will be really there, and that also there will be a shift towards action in the member states, in all the countries that you live in, to make sure that it actually happens on the ground. Thank you.
Shall we give it to you next week? Cool, thanks. So I'm Carlota from B-Lab. That's the organization behind B Corps and benefit corporation legislation around the world. I'm also a member of the EFRAG technical expert group, so the ones that did the standards, right? And basically what we want, on top of enforcing and implementing the Green Deal, we would also want to create a space where forward-thinking businesses can thrive. And after this formidable sustainable finance package that we have, all this framework for disclosures, we would like to go the step further. We would like to call for a tool that is accessible and that would measure performance. So beyond disclosures and granular disclosures and the quantity and quality of disclosures, we would like a measurement tool. We would like this to enhance the visibility of best-in-class companies, while also, carrying a judgment on the laggards. So we think it's important that now that we hope to have the available data after the CSRD, SFDR, and all these 4 or 5 letters acronyms, that we could actually move it to the next level, which would be to measure and assess performance and have an impact score allocated. And then a third priority, which goes in the same direction of giving visibility and seeing companies thrive, is that we find that this legal framework that we have seen arise in other jurisdictions. B-Lab traditionally pushed for it outside of the EU. There is in Peru, in Canada, in US, and most states actually. We have Société à Mission, we have Società Benefit. So we think now is a good time. We have now Sociedades de Bien Interés Común in Spain. So we think now it would be a good time to also think of a EU-wide directive for this kind of purpose-driven company. We find that now there seems to be an appetite for this paradigm shift from shareholder governance to stakeholder governance, and we think now would be a good time to embed this in legislation.
Okay, so my name is Thibaut Georgin. As Arthur said, I'm also part of the board of coalition Kaya Ecopreneur, which is the Belgian organization, also member of Ecopreneur Europe, and very glad to be here to participate to this session. So I'm here to explain you about one of the element or the recommendation of the manifesto. But before that, I just would like to come back to, the focus of today, which is the new models, the new ecopreneur that dares to create new business. So what is actually impact investing, or what is an ecopreneur? Actually, we have 200 members in Belgium, and these are people like you and me, quitting some jobs, for instance, well-paid jobs, to start business. And with the center of their intention is to have impact. So to start from the problem we have and to start building solutions. And it's really incredible what the passion is for those people to start doing business. What the passion, what the joy is to do that. And we can talk about, city logistics by bike, bioproduct, organic product, energy services, circular economy, zero waste model. So very innovative models that do demonstrate that it's possible to do business differently. Okay? But those guys, it's really great to do that, but they have a problem. And the problem is that it's damn difficult to be profitable. I'm not talking about reaching high return. I'm just talking about reaching a minimum viable financial return. And so that's something we need to change. It's not about inventing something. We know how to do it. Those people are front runners. They are showing the path. We know how to do. We just have to follow them. But in order to follow them, we also need to support them. And that's the measure, which is to take measures to support those type of new innovative models. And that can be done. There is 11 recommendation behind that topic, so I'm not going to explain all the 11 one, but I just want to point out 3 of them. The first one is public market. You know that public is buying a lot, and so if all public authorities would put in their market some environmental and social criteria, of course, that will give some advantages for people doing business on the right way. So that's definitely something we want to push. A second example is the price aspect. We often talk about the fact that doing sustainable business is more expensive than doing, let's say, business as usual, with single-use plastics, pollution, external negative externalities. And so what if we would use, for instance, the VAT as a way to differentiate sustainable from non-sustainable offering? So that could give definitely some competitive advantages to eco-entrepreneur. And the last one is about communication. I see that some people in the room are active also in communication and marketing. Now today there is really a confusion for the consumer, seeing a lot of people talking about sustainable solution, net zero, I don't know what, but it's really good for the planet, whatever, which is not factually. So we definitely need to have some regulations to stop or to, let's say, to punish people that makes wrong claims in order to be seen as, let's say, sustainable business, while they are totally not. So these are 3 elements, but there are 8 others in that topic of favoring eco-entrepreneur. And I think that if we do that, we can also promote that type of business and promote also the transformation of current business to get inspiration from the front runner and also to transform their business model.
Thank you, thank you. And you can see the commitment to sustainability on the panel. I mean, we've all used the same microphone. I mean, that's the sharing economy. There you go. And before people get worried with my English accent, I do have an Irish passport, so these elections do still matter to me. And I'm very happy to be talking about the 5th and final point of the manifesto, which is around social enterprises. And of course, as many of us in the room today, I guess, if we're here, already know, social enterprises are already leading the way and being part of this transition to a more sustainable, more inclusive economy. But of course, they already are facing challenges and continue to face challenges in doing this. And it's important that in the next Parliament, in the next Commission, the work which has already been begun with the Green Deal, but also with the Action Plan on the social economy and many other different things with long names, but it continues for the next 5 years, and we continue to see not just the social enterprises which already exist making this difference, but new enterprises as well, and also those businesses which are already established, embracing these ideas around social impact and environmental impact as well. Of course, we have quite a long manifesto, as you might have seen, if you've already scanned the QR code. And I've tried to condense this final point into 4 different areas. And if anyone can guess the first area I'm going to just mention, congratulations, it's finance. And it's, of course, making sure that social enterprises, these businesses, have not just access to finance, but the right finance, the appropriate source of finance. We've heard about blended finance today as well. But it's about making sure that, depending on where you are in your business model or cycle, that you can access the appropriate source. And, of course, it's not just about finance per se. It's also about these procurement opportunities, both from the public sector, but also from the private sector, unlocking the opportunities of state aid, and also using things like taxation frameworks to also incentivize more social entrepreneurial business. Of course, finance isn't any good without the non-financial support, and that, of course, from Euclid Network, I should say, I'm from Euclid Network, European Social Enterprise Network. National intermediaries are super important for this. They provide the business support, or things like accessing the finance, legal frameworks, how to, collect data on what you're doing, and also the skills that you need to make the success of this green digital transition. It's the non-financial support which really makes this financial support work. Regulatory frameworks are also important, making sure that there's recognition for social enterprises, that they can operate cross-border with verification systems which are also recognized cross-border, and investment which can flow cross-border as well. And again, visibility, as we just heard, is very important. If you don't see it, you don't know about it, it's not just policymakers, it's also the public who need to know about this. And all businesses, but also public authorities, have a role to play in making sure that it becomes more visible, both through their procurement, but also through the way they act and promote different businesses in their communities. So yes, together, with all these many ambitious points in the manifesto, hopefully we can make business for make business part of a better tomorrow, because today is almost too late. Thank you very much. There is a QR code here. It's not just because it looks beautiful. It's also because you can download the manifesto. Thank you also to the panelists. I've been asked to also introduce a video, which I believe is coming on the screen next, from Pascal Canfin from the European Parliament.
Hello, I'm sorry not to be able to join you today for your event, but I can assure you that what you are doing is of utmost importance, because if we want to move forward on the Green Deal agenda, we need to have an alliance between part of the political spectrum, of course from a transpartisan basis, but supportive of the Green Deal, and part of the business and finance community, which is also supportive of the Green Deal. And when we work together, when we put our energy together, well, that's when we manage to change the rules, both in an ambitious way and in a pragmatic way. And that's exactly what we share and what we need to do together. So that's why what you are doing now and strengthening this in Brussels is very much appreciated from the progressive part of the political side of this discussion. So congrats for this, and I will be very much happy to discuss with you later on on the electoral platform for the next mandate and the next term of the European Parliament on how to pursue the Green Deal and the adventure we started 5 years ago. Thank you for this.
Okay, thank you everybody. And I think the next panel is being hosted by dear colleague Stefan Panhausen. So if you want to come to the stage, thank you all very much for listening and download the manifesto.
Right. Again, welcome everybody. Thank you, Toby, for the introduction. My name is Stefan Panhuisen. I'm the director of Social Enterprise Netherlands. We're the national membership body of social enterprises in the Netherlands. And well, it's a turbulent day today in Brussels, and so you can see elections are coming up. So we're gonna hear the ideas of members of parliament for the economy of tomorrow. But before I introduce them, I will introduce this panel of entrepreneurs. They will respond to the pitches of the members of parliament. Just getting my other notes. So we have Julia Vauret from Loom from France. It's a sustainable fashion company. Welcome. And we'll probably hear more of you later. We have Carlos Cordero from Sustainia. Welcome, Carlos. And Emery Jacquila, I hope I pronounced it well. And of course, Annemiek Dreesen, founder of Newbies, social enterprise. And you can all, maybe when you respond to the members of parliament, shortly introduce your own company as well. All right. And then I'll start by introducing our panel of members of parliament, and after that they will take the stage and have their pitch. We'll start with Anja Haga from the Netherlands. She represents the European People's Party. Her pitch will be on corporate due diligence, and maybe a fun fact on Anja is that she lives plastic-free. So we're curious to learn how that works. After Anja, we'll have, I think I just shortly introduce them all and then bring them one-to-one to the stage, so you know what to expect. After Anja, we have Malte Gallet from Germany, representing the Greens. He will talk about the circular economy. And a fun fact about Malte is that he's the youngest German member of parliament, in the parliament. And after Malte, we go to Monica Semedo from Luxembourg as an independent candidate. She will talk about the social economy, and a fun fact is that she used to be a TV presenter. All right. Yes, time for Anja to come to the stage. Oh yes, and maybe one thing, I'll be a very strict timekeeper. So you have 6 minutes for your pitch, and then we go to the panel.
Yeah, if you don't keep the time with politicians, they will fill the whole hour. So you're right. But thanks for having me here. I'm very glad to be here, and I'm very glad that I can change views with you about responsible business conduct. And many thanks to the organization for inviting me here tonight. And I do believe this event is very important, and it marks a trend which we have been seeing for a couple of years now. It's a trend of increasing attention for and commitment to responsible business conduct. And to be honest, I'm really a big fan of social enterprises, and I live without single-use plastic in my life, so it's a challenge. And of course, I always look for companies who have new products I can incorporate in my life, because I'm always looking for plastic-free things in my life. It's a challenge, but I manage for 5 years now, more than 5 years, so it's not that difficult. If I can do it, everybody can do it, I think. But as I said, I'm a big fan of social enterprises, and that's because money is not the goal for these enterprises, but it's their means to achieve the social mission, impact first. And I see social enterprises as examples how it can be done, the front runners. And I think mainstream companies should be inspired by social enterprises. And that raises the question of, what kind of economy do we want in Europe? Do we want an economy of more, or an economy in which quality is central? And I think we should go for the last. In my view, we must strive for a relational economy that goes beyond profit margins and short-term gains. An economy that does justice to people, communities, and nature as well. And we need to work on fair and safe value change. We need to make sure that people and planet do not fall victim in the search for economic gain. And I'm happy to see that there are nice developments in this, and I'm very happy to see that there are also social entrepreneurs here. And in my own country, the Netherlands, my own political party, the Christian Union, spearheaded a legislative proposal on corporate due diligence, which is in process right now. So there are developments in my country, but also on European level. The EU adopted its Corporate Sustainable Due Diligence Directive, and this will be formalized soon. And even on a broader level, on UN level, they are working on a global binding instrument on business and human rights since 2014. And maybe you did not know, but the EU did not participate in the negotiations of this binding instrument. But luckily, 3 weeks ago, the European Parliament decided that Europe has to be part of these negotiations. And I'm very happy and glad with this result. I was one of the shadow rapporteurs on this report. So from now on, Europe will take part of the negotiations of the UN binding instrument on human rights. And I think that's very positive development. It's part of the trend I was talking about. And in all these developments, there's one aspect we should not forget, and it's the need for coherence. There are several efforts taking place simultaneously on different levels of governance. And so it's crucial that we work towards a body of rules and policies that complement each other. We need a level playing field and ensure legal certainty, both for potential victims and companies. So we must ensure that frontrunners, I think many like you here in this room, that frontrunners are encouraged to continue, and government policy should support this. And this means offering certainty. Companies must be prevented from deliberately lagging behind and creating an unfair competitive position. So there must be a level playing field, and it is therefore good that we formalize guidelines that work well, such as the UN guiding principles I was talking about. What I hope for in the next EU parliamentary term is for the EU to step up its game in multilateral negotiations on business and human rights, especially within the UN. We have managed to deliver on ambitious legislation within the EU, and the impact of this legislation can further be enhanced if we can inspire action at a global level. So I think that Europe, as an important economic engine at international level, has an essential, crucial role in this. I hope that Europe can set the standard for an economy that does just to people, communities, and nature. And I believe Europe holds the key to this, but it's up to the politicians, of course, after the election to bring this further. I think I will do that, my colleagues here in the room will do that, and hopefully Europe will vote for this during the elections as well. So I look forward to exchange views with you, and thank you for attention. Do you want me to stand here, or can I sit down, or what's the idea?
It's the guy behind you who knows everything. So yeah, you can.
Where do you, in the room or here?
Sit in, I think, on the stage. Yep. So thank you again, Anja. That was a very clear story, and also right in time. So what I will do, especially this first time, all panel members can shortly, 20 seconds, introduce themselves and directly ask a question to Anja. And I will start just here with Annemiek. Yep.
Is this on?
It's on.
It's on. Thank you very much for this clear talk. And my name is Annemiek Dreesen. I am the founder and CEO of Newbies. Newbies is an organization that works on an inclusive world and workplace. We do so by training and facilitating people who are new to the Netherlands and Europe to adjust and find a way to use their talents in a new workplace. And we do so by facilitating employers to become more inclusive employer and workplace so that everybody feels safe and all talent can be put to use. We're mostly in the Netherlands, but kind of expanding at the moment. And I'm wondering, as we've heard a lot about eco and Green Deal, and I think social is an important aspect of it, and obviously the thing that we find very important. How will the EU in the end support the front runners that you are mentioning and that are sitting beside me here on stage? What will that support look like, and how will we be able to benefit from being those front runners and being impact first companies? That'd be my question.
Thank you. Yeah, so the format is we will do all the questions. I will write them down also, and we have to use a bit of collective intelligence, but otherwise we'll lose all the time with the first question. So thank you, Annemiek. And we go to Julia.
Yes. Oh, wow. So my name is Julia. I own a clothing brand, and what we do is we try to make clothes that you don't have to buy much. And also we try to improve our English, but that's another. You understand, no? There we are as a human. We are consuming too much clothing, and we are a company of clothing trying to make good quality clothes that are made locally, and we don't push you to buy things you don't need. But I am also the daughter of an English teacher, but also I'm the co-president of Impact France, which is part of the coalition. And my question is, I mean, it's great to support Pioneer and eco company or company impact company, but I think there's an urgency of punishing the companies that are destroying social and environment. I mean, because they are destroying the condition for the planet to go on. They are destroying value for human, but they are also destroying the possibility for us as a company to develop ourselves. So I know that we are entrepreneurs and we want always to give positive things and like to push for positive measure, but I think today there's an urgency of first stopping some company to destroy. And I would like to know if there's something planned on that.
Great. Thank you, Julia. Very clear question. So the first question was on benefiting the front runners. Second question on punishing the non-front runners. Carlos from Sustainia, to you.
Hello, my name is Carlos. I'm coming from director of Sustainia. It's a Spanish consultancy that's working in sustainable and business and human rights, transparency, access to rights to information, and anti-corruption. And I'm in the board of SANAS, is the business association, the Triple Balance, World Balance Association. And my question is regarding because we are working in Europe, but also in Latin America. And sometimes we see and we listen cases of the big impacts on the planet and the people in the value chain, and the value chain sometimes is going directly to our business here at the end of to our consumers. So regarding the European directive on due diligence, and that has been agreed but not completely approved yet. The point is, how do you imagine, or how do you think that it's going to be implementing and to be effective, or what external effects is going to be in other countries abroad? And so in the case of, there are a lot of in the value chain of different sectors asking, for example, Latin American companies, business, there are suppliers of the European one, and how it's going to be effective to them, and the relationship about trade agreement between Europe and also investment relationship between both regions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Good question. So on the effects of the due diligence on the international value chains, also in Latin America, for example. Thank you. All right, Emery, time for you to introduce yourself and ask the final question.
Nice to meet you. I'm Emery Jacquia. I'm the president of CAMIF. CAMIF is a company that have a positive impact on responsible consumption, locally made product, and circular economy. And I also founded the Communauté des Entreprises à Mission in France. My question would be, how can we make frugality great again? Because I think it's quite difficult to, and not fair to ask and to demand to consumer to be frugal in a world where everybody is valuing overconsumption, and how can we decouple happiness and consumption? And one question could be, would you be, as we do it in CAMIF every year, we boycott the Black Friday, would you ban Black Friday, for example? Would you regulate advertisement, for instance? I know the Kaya group is here, and it's part of their proposition.
Great. So, Anja, you have the great task to respond to these questions, while almost all of our time for discussion is used with the questions. So I ask you to try to do this in maybe 2-3 minutes. Be brief. It's a big challenge. So the questions on benefiting, punishing, international value change, and should we ban Black Friday?
Yeah.
maybe that's an easy one. Just do it.
What I hear in the questions is, what will EU policy do? Will it have effect, and how? And I think what I see, EU policy, it's of course very fragmented. So these are little steps, but in total it will have impact. I hope so. But we have to be yeah, we have to do it in all aspects, and we don't do it yet. Because if we see Mercosur, for example, it's not a good trade agreement. In my opinion, we should not have this trade agreement because it's creating not a level playing field, especially not for social enterprises, etc., for farmers. And so that's not the development we want. But what we see, there are little steps forward, like the due diligence. Corporate due diligence directive. That's one step forward, but we are taking other steps sometimes backward, and that's difficult. But I think in the end, we are taking little steps forward. And in my group, I see discussions about it. I'm one of the Greens in my group, so I always say we have to go for the green decision. Because we have just one planet, and we can't use more of our planet than it gives us. So it has to be in balance. But some other people think, yes, but don't push it. We need more time. But I say we don't have that many time because we have climate change, etc. So we have to take steps forward, and we have to be inclusive for other people as well. And in the end of the debate, a lot of members of the parliament agree with me, but it takes time, and not everybody wants to go as fast as we want to go. But on the whole picture, I see steps forward, but it takes time, and I can imagine that from your point of view, it's all going too slowly. But I think we're going to get there. And of course, I don't want Black Friday. We should get rid of it immediately. It's the economy I don't want. I don't want economy of more. I would like to have an economy of quality. So if you buy something, it should be something good, which lasts for years, and not. Now that's why I live without single-use plastic, because single-use plastic is an example of the way we should not live. Because you buy something, it has no quality, you throw it away, but it is made already, so there is, it's a negative. It has negative impact on our planet, so we should not do that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'm going to interrupt
I never
you.
stop.
It's clear. I hope you stay a bit for the drinks, and we can learn more on your plastic-free lifestyle. Again, an applause for Anja, please. Very much. And I just heard the order is a bit different. We go to Monica now. So up to you. Take the stage and stick to the 6 minutes. And the other ones already think of your questions. Okay, applause for Monica Semedo. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the movement Impact France for organizing this, how I think, important event. So I'm Monica Semedo, independent member of the Renew Europe group, so the Liberal and Democrats, but I have a very social heart, I have to say. I'm a member of the Employment and Social Committee and one of the co-founders of the Social Economy Intergroup in the European Parliament. When I say that, people ask me, what is social economy? And then I begin to explain that it is a variety of businesses, from associations for the social cooperatives, but it can be SMEs, or for Luxembourg, for example, micro enterprises, which objective or principles are to have a positive impact on our society, and that can be very, very diverse. So first, the social aspect of social economy. I think we heard it during this evening. Of course, inclusion, fostering gender equality, tackle inequalities in society. For example, also the reintegration into the job market for persons, care facilities, of course, and taking care of our youth. But social economy goes beyond the social aspect. It is not only non-profit, it can also be profitable enterprises, always applying the principles of social economy and their objectives. So I prefer to say impact economy because it's highlighting more this innovative driven aspect of social economy, but also the sustainable, the fair and digital, and green transition, for example, and always with the objective, with the goal of improving our society and fostering inclusion. There are a few examples. Now I specify for Luxembourg, which is a multilingual country, so we speak Luxembourgish, German, and French, so it's not always easy, especially for children, to learn all these languages. So there is an upcoming app that will help them, especially also those children who have difficulties in reading, in order to learn all these languages. Also, with an integrative aspect, there is one app teaching French to women under the refugee status in order to integrate easier in the Luxembourgish society, because French is very important. Then there are service providers in order to develop circular economy for cities, but also, of course, for enterprises, and so on and so forth. So social economy or impact economy, and I think that is this that's what I like about it, and that's why I want to promote it and I advocate for it. It's very diverse. So I'm also very glad that the initiative report of my colleague Jordi Cañas was heard and written and was transformed into a council recommendation published last year that recommends the member states, because it's the member states, the governments, that are in duty to foster, to support social economy. Because it's like with recycling, what we do as individuals, I do it like automatically, but it's a change in the mindset. It's a change in the mindset of entrepreneurs to not think just about profit, which is eligible to have profit, but to think also what and how can I have a positive impact on our society by recruiting employees, for example, that have difficulties to have access to the job market, but also other purposes can be eligible. So this recommendation recommends measures and also objective, like social inclusion, of course, access to the labor market, skills development, which I think is very important nowadays, and of course recommends the member states to give enterprises incentives, like taxation, for example. That works. I think taxation works. And in Luxembourg, and I think also in other countries like France, they have labels that then label these enterprises, these SMEs, for example, that they have a positive impact on the society. So they gain visibility, and in Luxembourg also better access or easier access to finance. So in fact, the conditions are following the SDGs, creating a positive impact on the society. And I think if we do that, and if the networks works together, you join the forces here, and if you do that, we can make a change in our society. So thank you for that, for this initiative. And I just have to say one thing also to my colleagues. So I hope that during the next mandate, we will keep up with the social economy intergroup. So you have people in the parliament that support you, okay? So maybe it will be changed into impact economy, but let's see. So we keep up. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And a very important statement, so we make some time for that. All right, looking at you at the panel, and let's try to speed it up a bit. So one question or remark, everyone. Let's do for now the same order. Next one I'm going to do otherwise. But Annemiek, a question to Monica, or remark.
All right, thank you very much. We'll be quick. We don't have to introduce ourselves anymore.
Exactly.
I just have one question because I'm preaching a little bit to the choir here, I think, when we're talking about social and impact economy. But how do you view inclusion in the workplace, for example, which is definitely something that's super important to us, in this world that we do see member states moving to the right politically? And how does that balance out?
Thank you.
Yes,
Julia?
and I'm not going to ask a question. I'm just going to make a remark, so you can
as well. Yep.
You can have that in mind when you defend us on the parliament. For us, social entrepreneur, impact entrepreneur, the big difficulty is that there is a price war, and we are always losing it. And we have been told that no, price is not that important. Consumer will make the difference. What important is quality. What important is ethic. But at the end, it's not true. At the end, only the price matter. So what we need is like people protecting us from the low price competencies, concurrence. You got it. So that was just the remark. I mean, we should not believe anymore in the dream that, well, people at the end will choose the more quality or more ethical product. We have waited for that in the textile industry, and today most of the clothes that are made and sold are low-cost clothes. In France, 70% of the clothes that are sold are low-cost. So we are fighting a price war, and we are losing it day after day. So just so you have in mind that fighting for impact company is fighting the price war.
Important remark. Carlos, a question or a remark? Yeah.
Both.
No, wow.
Just supporting the idea that we have to work in the fair market, not only competitive market, also fair market, and that should be include all the effects, not only the price, also the external effects that we are producing using under labor rights and environmental effects of the different products producing here or abroad. And my question is regarding something that you are using your speech is. Okay, we are going to call social economy or impact economy or whatever. I think it's important to give name it. So because if you can say exactly what is it, you can do regulation and public policy on that. So you have to define the scope. What is it and what is not? And that could be fighting green and social washing on that. So this is like a basic norm that try to define perfectly what it's talking. And in Italy and France, there's a law defining what the scope, what kind of business and which are the requirements. In Spain, we starting just with the name, no regulation yet. But I think it's because it's very important for all Europe. We have to define in European scope. It's not the country by country, but it's because it affects to the competition, fair competition, and other aspects.
Thank you, Carlos. Last question to Emery.
Of course, I totally agree with that. And I think we should all be inspired by social businesses and social entrepreneurs. But the key is, how can we go viral? How can we scale up? How can we go mainstream? And so I think we have to remodel and rethink the company itself. We have to change the corporate law, and as you say, we need a legal framework to define what is an impact model, what is a regenerative model, and to structure the thing, to perpetuate the commitments of companies. For that, 3 countries have already experienced. In France, in Italy, in Spain, you're starting, but the thing is, a question would be, when could we have a European directive for this legal framework? First question.
Concrete question.
That address actually 2 questions for companies. Why do they exist? What is their purpose? What are their commitments, social, environmental commitments? How can they be useful for common goods? And second question, how they decide. If we leave the decision on only shareholders, we're going to have a problem for shifting business model. We need to include stakeholders into the corporate governance. So that's a key subject that is addressed by the purpose-driven companies. And also a second question, because you didn't ask one, so are you pro or against
European cooperation?
Installing barrier at EU frontiers? Are you pro or against banning Shein or Temu operating in Europe? Are you pro or against a carbon tax at EU frontiers? So that's 4 questions.
Okay, and we, sorry, Monica, I can only give you 2 or 3 minutes to respond to these questions. So maybe that's also good for you, right? Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, yes, I know that Commissioner Schmidt, he was very, very supportive for directive or more action, legal action regarding social economy. As Luxembourgers, we exchange. But yes, I must say, unfortunately, the outcome was just a recommendation, so a non-legal document, a recommendation for the Council, but there is the attempt of a common definition, but as it is non-legal, it's non-binding, unfortunately, but each country can, of course, put forward a clear definition, what is social economy or impact economy and what is not, which is the fact for Luxembourg. So inclusion on work, yes, important, is very important. I'm visually impaired, so I also have personal interest in guaranteeing, I would say, an intersectional approach. So not just for people with disabilities, but for people from different backgrounds, ethnicities, and so that we have the diversity in our companies, in our SMEs. I think that will add to it. So I'm an advocate for intersectionality. And as Luxembourger, I don't want borders, but when it comes to corporate tax, I think you know what is the position of Luxembourg on these tax, European or international tax matters. But of course we are in Luxembourg always compliant. That's the most important. But when it comes to social economy, this cross-border aspect is of course important also. So this is something the EU should also support in the future. And yes, unfortunately the competition with big companies and low price fashion is hard. I give this comment to my IMCO colleagues and hope they can do something about it. So let's hope for the next mandate. This mandate is not over yet, so we still have time to take influence in certain files. So, but let's hope the best for also the next mandate and for you all. So I hope we can promote, we can raise awareness, and we can make the change in the mindset of companies, but also the customers. So
thank you very much, Monica Semedo. Big applause for her. And we don't waste anything, so we also don't waste any time, and we continue with here it goes, Malte Gallet from Germany. Big applause. Time is running.
How much time do you give me?
5 minutes.
Wonderful. Yeah, how do we shape the businesses of tomorrow? I think that's a really, really interesting and crucial question for everybody who thinks about starting something new. And if we look at the past and basically where the challenges come from, like I would say the big three crises, so the climate crisis, the biodiversity loss, and the pollution crisis. I guess the main problem was always that we never looked at the externalities. We just let companies pollute, we let companies exploit, and this led to the situation where we are right now. And this is why I just wrote down some notes here. This is why I chose the topic of a circular economy, because I think this must be the business model of every company that is in production in the future. Because circularity basically means that we get rid of this model that just accepts all the externalities, that gets rid of the model of using and throwing away, of producing waste, but to look at basically what resources do I need as a company and how can I make sure that I do not even get to the point that I produce waste. I think the challenge for businesses of the future is to challenge the concept of waste and to make sure that everything a company uses can stay within the whole view of this company all the time. Within the European Green Deal, we did quite some good jobs already, like especially if we look at the climate side. But if we look at the resource side, we did not really solve all the problems there. We know how to get renewable energies, but we do not really know how to feed all the resource hunger in the world. And therefore, I think it is really, really important that for the future, it's not only to think about how to use the resources, but also to make sure that we get a view on the whole supply chains all around the globe, and that we basically, in the businesses of the future, create this kind of a global village where we also see each and everybody in the supply chain, in the value chain, that contributes to the production of our products. I always like to say the labor costs are pretty low if you have slaves, you know, and that's basically the business models that we are facing right now. And also, like you said it, we are fighting a price war. Yes, that's true. But the thing is that those who we are fighting with, they don't pay the real price. And so basically this must be our common goal, to ensure that each and everyone starts to pay the right price. Because if we manage to internalize all these externalities that we so far did not internalize, if we manage this, then the social businesses, then the ecological businesses, then they definitely will win the price war. Like you mentioned the textiles industry, I think that's a perfect example of this, where we have so much to do. Because currently we produce it far away, we consume it, and then we send it to African countries to dump it there, to pollute the environment. We have no rules on that. And like what we did in the European Parliament now, for example, already is like this kind of holistic approach of legislation, that we look in into products and look like from the source like from cradle to cradle, to look from the mine to the waste dump, to regulate it over the whole life cycle. And I think this is really a step towards a world where we manage to not externalize all these negative effects. I could talk like hours longer, but I think we're running short on time already.
15 seconds is what I give you.
Okay, let me look at my favorite bullet point. Make sure that you are in control of all the resource flows and that you know everybody who is involved, and then so create closed loops, then we make a better tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Applause for Malte. And that's perfect in time. And I will again ask the panel to give either a short reaction or ask a question. And I'll mix it a bit up. But I will start with you, Julia. You were,
Just a remark on. You said me, huh?
Yeah.
And that never show his English. Did he insult my mother?
I said it in a very Dutch way, Julia.
About circularity, circular economy. I love the image. But being an entrepreneur within like the impact economy, I realize this image is false. And this is super difficult to understand, but producing is polluting. And even if we recycle some stuff, recycling is polluting. Recycling is consuming energy. Recycling is generating greenhouse gases. And in textile industry, we don't manage to recycle a lot of stuff because it's weaken the fiber, so it makes weaken clothes. So what I realize is why this circular economy image is so wide, so popular. It's because it's super pleasant for, we love that, we love the idea, but also because it doesn't point the right question. Because the problem is not that we pollute, the problem is not that producing is polluting, it's that we produce so much. And so much in comparison on what we need. This is the problem. This is overproduction is the problem. Not that our life has an impact on the environment. It will always have. We will always consume resources. We will always pollute. When you build a house, you have to take down biodiversity, plants, and so on. And a lot of words I cannot say in English, but you get it, no? So I think like the idea of. So instead of talking about producing less, sobriété, I think like the big company made us believe in circular economy, and this is not real.
You're challenging the concept.
It does not exist, and I challenge the concept of, and I use it. I'm the co-president of a movement that talk about circular economy because at the end we know what it means. It means yes, we can recycle a little bit, but we can also repair and so on. And so yes, it's a bit circular economy, but it's not this circle that we think that economy has no impact. So yes, I challenge the fact that we use this word because this word does not help us.
Very clear statement. I'm going to give others the floor as well, but strong statement. Carlos, can I?
No, just supporting your idea. The thing is, we are growing too fast, and also because we have fast fashion, fast consuming, fast everything. So it's growing and growing and growing, and the planet has limits, and natural resources has limits, and we are not getting in the price, in the cost, and in the commercial relationship, the real externalities, economical externalities in the present and in the future. So we are not assuming that in this generation. And this is a big problem. Recycling is a good idea, but also we have to understand that, for example, the climate change, we are going to have less water, and even the production is going to change, even the tourism is going to change, even the farming is going to change. So we have to not thinking about the traditional way of business. We have to try to understand how should be do the business in the future, because the context is going to change completely. So circular economy is a good paradigm, but should be understand in the new context. And in the new context is...
Very clear. Yeah, Emery, Annemiek, maybe a short reflection, and so we have some time for Malte to respond.
I'll be very short. I fully agree. The circular economy is very sexy, but also complicated. And I just keep missing this one thing, and this one thing is people. We always talk about the things and the water and the planet, and it's important. The planet will be here. So my question to you is, where are the people in this circular economy, and how do we deal with the inequalities in the world, but also within companies that are the center of most pollution? Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Great. Emery?
I would say I'm a big fan of circular economy, but it doesn't exist really. At CAMIF, it takes a lot of time. It needs cooperation, it needs in big investment. It took us 4 years to bring to the market a mattress only made with all mattresses. 4 years, it's a long time to develop this product. And the key idea is how can we make it happen. I had the chance to work for 3 months last year for the Ministry of Ecology to make a circular circular VAT report, because we could use tax to help circular economy. How can we imagine we tax the same way a circular product or repair a product, same tax as the product low cost that comes from the Asia or whatever. So it's not normal. So are you okay with using VAT, or because we are tied to the European directive, we cannot have a lower VAT on circular products. In France, for instance, we had 25 years ago, we had 45,000 shoe repairs. Nowadays, it's 3,000. So that's the way it goes for circular economy. So we have to invest this. Can we use the VAT and tax to help circular economy?
Yeah, no, I leave it to you, Malte. So the circular economy doesn't exist, and if you want it to exist, we should at least change European rules on VAT.
Well, first of all, I would disagree. Circular economy indeed does exist. But of course, like basically our challenge is to make it happen everywhere, and where the big problems come from is where it does not exist. Producing is polluting, yes, of course, but like the world that I envision makes sure that we come to a stage of, let's call it, virgin material input free. So that we basically just live off the resources that we so far emit as waste. And it's technically possible. Textiles, okay. Mechanical recycling does not really work. No, there are chemical recycling technologies for fiber, for cotton, where you get out like a virgin material quality yarn. So also the research and development in this area is growing, and this is also like basically what we are pushing for, or what I try to push for in the last years in the European legislation, to go for, let's say, minimum recycled content requirements and so on. So, yeah.
Even if you manage to chemical recycling, you use chemical.
I think I have to interrupt because some people, we are also we also want the next part of the program. So final minute to you, Malte, and then we'll discuss it further over drinks. Yeah.
Really happy to discuss. And I mean, like I'm totally on your side that we have to stop the exploitation of our natural resources. That's for sure. But the only way to do so is like as us as legislators, to come up with requirements and like to throw this buzzword of circular economy. Of course, there are super many companies that don't really go into this direction, and they say, yeah, we recycle. I mean, like you all know the Coca-Cola bottles where it's written recyclable. Thanks a lot. Yeah, everything is recyclable. It just depends on the effort you put in. That's not the kind of circular economy that we cannot stick to the old products. But we can shift towards a reuse, a repair society, and favor these kinds of business models in the future. You still had, yeah, so how can we make it happen, basically, the real circular economy?
This is your final statement.
Yeah, I think, as I said, to internalize all the externalized costs, and one way to do it, of course, is through taxes. So the VAT, great. Unfortunately, on European level, we don't have the competences for that, so that's back to the member states. We needed a treaty change for that. Happy to work all together on this.
Thank you, Malte. And a big round of applause also for the panel. Thank you very much. And now I'll ask to stage Mauro Del Barba, which will make the closing statements. Thank you all.
Hi everybody, it's a big honor to close this wonderful day. I am Mauro Del Barba, I'm member of Italian Parliament, and I'm president of Assobenefit that I founded in 2018. So this panel remember me when in 2015 I decided to design the law for Società Benefit Corporation. And what I did, I advocacy and lobby myself, and 2 months ago I voted the law. This is real power, guy. Eh? Now the challenge is stronger, but now we are stronger too, thanks to the coalition. Business for a better future. So, think to the name. We have an enemy. Which is the enemy of business for a better future? Is business as usual. And the business as usual produce politic as usual and politician as usual. We have to change in this way, exactly in the way you showed before. So congratulations to everyone, and we are very proud, very happy to stay here together in this coalition. We have to change Europe. We have to change our future. And so now all of you are invited to a big party for this big startup. Thank you, everybody.